Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Hello, magical ones. Welcome. In today's modern spiritless society, magical women are often living in hiding from their power and magic for fear of being outcast and burned at the stake. They sell themselves short, giving away their souls in return for love, approval, and security, leaving themselves burned out, burdened, and longing for a life of more, but feeling powerless to create it. I've walked that path, so I've created a portal to help magical women harness their power and discover their gifts so that they can reclaim their radiance. Our Facebook community is a safe and alchemical altar space filled with sisterhood, liberation, and magic. So why not head over and join us by searching Secret Witch Circle on Facebook? We'll see you there. My guest today is Samantha Giles. Samantha is probably better known as an actress. She has played comedy character Bernice Blackstock in ITV1's Emmerdale for several years. She's also been a regular character in 3 series of Where the Heart Is and Hollyoaks, as well as lead guest roles in many other well-known TV programmes. She started writing about 4 years ago, inspired by a dream she had about the 4 witch characters that feature in her debut book, Rosemary and the Witches of Pendle Hill. Other than writing and acting, she has her own website where you can find out more about her, including her interest in Wicca and where she sells her spell kits. Her children's books feature many of the foundations of Wicca, including the basic law of Harmony None, as well as fun spell weaving, and they have just been sold internationally, inspiring children across the globe into their power. In this episode, we dived into how to shine radiantly as your powerful magical self, exploring how to harness real magical technology and how Samantha devoted herself to soul in order to create a magical life, both as an actress and an author. Welcome, Samantha. I am so delighted to have you with us on The Secret Witch Show. Clearly, you're no longer a secret witch. You're very radiantly shining as a wild witch, declared to the world. So I feel like there's a lot that the secret witches at home can learn from you here. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's a delight. And I really... I'm loving, you sent me one of your books that you've been creating, so we'll get into that, I'm sure, but I just thought to start with, it might be really beneficial to dive in a little bit to your story and kind of maybe some of the struggles that you've experienced with magic and with being a witch, and how you came to be able to kind of shine so radiantly, both as an actress and kind of an outed witch, as it were. So I don't know if that's a good place to begin.
Sure. I mean, I think it's never been easy growing up as a female, has it? And I think that every generation faces its own challenges, different challenges. You know, my daughters now are facing different challenges to what I did with this whole social media thing, which wasn't around when I was growing up. But I mean, I think sort of some of the most challenging times for me were when I went to university, actually, and I had a really, really horrible time and was bullied, bullied there quite badly. And I really felt like I had no power at all in every sense, you know. I felt like I couldn't make friendships, and so on and so forth. Anyway, obviously I got through that time, and as sort of time has progressed over the years, I guess, I've always kind of been drawn to, in previous relationships, I suppose, people that had lots of problems. I think this is quite a common thing with some people, isn't it? That I had boyfriends with alcohol problems, or, and various other difficulties. So you sort of feel in the end that your own needs and wants and your own life is sort of put on hold while you're constantly helping other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that women face anyway, because you naturally tend to put other people first, don't you? You're kind of brought up that way, I suppose, especially if you've got
Yeah.
children and so on.
It's
And then
particularly pertinent actually to the witch, because if you think about a kind of I describe it as like the witch wound is very much, we kind of gave away our power as witches for love, approval and security, because otherwise we'd have been burnt at the stake. So it makes perfect sense that that is kind of one of the ways that women, particularly who are magical and powerful, do experience that.
Well, I think the biggest change for me came when I was doing a show called Where the Heart Is, actually, and I went to see this lady. I don't even know if she's still alive, and she said to me, and I was in a very, very difficult relationship at the time, and she said to me, "You're going to Italy." And she said, and the next stage of your journey is you're going to be welcoming in an Italian lady, and she's going to take you on the next stage of your journey. Now, she said to me, I don't know whether she's you in a previous life or whether she's somebody that's just coming as one of your guides to help you. Anyway, so I thought, well, that's nice. I didn't really think much of it. Anyway, I went to Italy, and it was the most empowering experience ever. I went on my own. I went to a relative's wedding, and I did all these things on my own that I would never have done before. I hired a car and I drove across Italy, and I spoke Italian, even though I was speaking kind of pidgin Italian stroke French with an Italian accent. I just got understood everywhere. It was really weird. And when I came back, I felt very different. And I felt, and I don't know if it was just psychologically, I felt that the lady was with me, or that I just came back feeling, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm not going to be being put up with being bullied and being treated like I'm worthless, and being treated also as if I was slightly mad and slightly unhinged. The things that I would say or feelings that I would have about things. And so I dealt with these things in my life with a very, very strong foundation. I just felt like this is what I'm going to need to say, and this is what I'm going to say, and go. So I felt really empowered, and I got rid of all this deadwood in my life. And it was a huge changing point in my life, actually.
Yeah, wow, that sounds really powerful. It's almost like you just suddenly caught a glimpse of your own power amidst all the kind of chaos that was going on. And yeah, interesting. And so at that point, were you kind of I suppose practicing is the word I'm looking for, practicing as a witch, or did that come at a different time?
I think that I wasn't really. I sort of, I'd grown up in a household where, like, my mum would be able to look at your palm and be able to read and tell you things, and she saw animals with people, and she had this other power thing going on, really, which she never really embraced. So I think that it was something that we grew up with, and I remember getting tarot cards when I was only very early 20s, and doing stuff with them and all that kind of thing. So I was interested and sort of felt like there was power in thought and symbolism and all those kinds of things, but I hadn't really started practicing properly. I suppose it was shortly after that I became much more interested in crystals and herbs and the power of thought and the power of manifestation, really. And then after that, becoming more interested in reading about Wicca as a whole and as like a way of life. And, you know, I've always loved nature and the natural world, and realizing that the two kind of go hand in hand. I mean, obviously lots of people that are Wiccans don't practice witchcraft. And to be fair, I don't really do very much now at all. But there's things that you kind of do as a way of life, aren't there? Like having rosemary outside your front door, and, you know, picking the lavender, and you know, things that are important to you. And you know, obviously we're coming up to Samhain, and you know, the little rituals that you might do every year. So I suppose that's all part of being a witch. And obviously I do spell kits now for people, and I know lots of people would say, well, you know, it's a funny thing, this, because if you like, your, you know, magic is something which is, I believe, should only be used as a last resort, and also something very sacred. And, you know, people sort of say, well, why are you making these kits and selling them? But all I really want to do is to be able to show people that they have that power too, to take control of their life. And in a way, the kits that I sell, if you like, are more like self-help kits, I suppose. And I'm very sort of clear on my website and everything about how you should only be using them for the greater good, you know, and you have to really think about your motivation, and that it is actually quite a complicated process. So, you know, for lots of people, you know, they may not get the results they achieve because they haven't done something quite right within the, you know, or their intention isn't pure. So all you can do is try and help people and guide them. But if it doesn't work out, I guess, you know, there's nothing much you can do about that. So it's really a way of saying to people, you can take back some control and letting them explore further with that.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting there, actually, I don't agree necessarily that it's like a last resort. I think actually it's almost like you said earlier, actually, for me, it's like a way of being in the world that is just more intentional. And I think, like you say, those kits are a beautiful, beautiful way of helping people to kind of learn to harness their power. So yeah, I really love the spell kits that you have on your website. They're gorgeous. Just for me, they're just like really a beautiful way of, yeah, like I say, helping people harness their power, begin to, you know, play with it. And
I suppose I say it's a last resort because otherwise, you know, the nature of the human being, the sort of person in the street, if you like, that doesn't really know much about magic and Wicca, is that they'll go, well, I want a new job. You know, so I'm just going to do it. And I said, you have to do these things along with practical measures. You can't sit in your house and say, and do a spell for a new job and yet not actually leave your house or apply for any jobs.
I love that you said that. I so see that, because one of the things I think that is kind of misrepresented in modern, I don't know about self-help, but almost like the laws of manifestation, is this idea that we're almost just sitting here waiting for the universe to provide. And actually, like you say, the way I would describe what you just spoke to there is almost we can put our intention out there, but there is this kind of co-creative way of being that is like we need to then take the aligned actions in order to co-create with the universe, if that makes sense. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I really love how you've explored that.
And the universe will put opportunities your way, but you have to take them and you have to grasp them and run with them and use them in the best way possible.
And I think it's really important, actually. A big part of the journey that I share is really making sure that what you're requesting or putting out there and asking to receive is aligned more deeply with your soul and who you really are and who you're meant to be. So yeah, I really love that you've pointed to that, actually. That's really powerful for our listeners to know, I think. Yeah, gorgeous. I know, as you said as well, the way that I talk about the witch really is as a almost this lens, this mirror for our lives, for people to just hold up and see that actually they've got the power, they've got the magic that the witch has. It's not necessarily that they, you know, have to use spells or that they have to be practicing witches, but it's just being able to see that everybody within them has the story of the witch, the power of the witch, the magic of the witch available to them. And yeah, what I really loved about your journey, one of the things I was reading in your bio, actually, I think it was on your website, was how you had written a letter to, I think it was Catherine Hepburn. And it really just struck me that this was like this really powerful visioning, even, you know, back at the very beginning of your career. Like you had really expressed your desire and put it out there that you wanted to be an actress. And then obviously you've become an amazing actress. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit to that. Is that something that you had done intentionally then, or is it now that you're kind of looking back, you see that actually that was magic?
I suppose, yeah, I had never thought of it like that. But I just admired her so much, and I was fascinated with her work and the way she was very kind of she never took any nonsense. She was very clear about what she wanted to achieve, and she wasn't going to let the fact that she was a woman let people put her down and so on. Okay, you know, she did have money in her family, which obviously does make a massive difference. But she was very, very determined woman, and I think all power to her, and she was very straight talking. So I suppose, yes, it was a way of, you know, kind of starting my own journey towards that. I mean, I've not been able to, I haven't been able to get those traits that she has got. I'm not straight talking enough. You know, I worry too much about what people think about me, which is a shame, really, because I don't think she cared. Certainly that's what we're led to believe. Maybe she did care, but you know, she certainly comes across like she didn't care. And certain things you can't care about if you want to get results. You know, if you're walking away from a job or something, you can't care what people think about you. Just got to care about doing that kind of thing. And
I suspect there's always a way to kind of dive deeper and liberate those kind of those things as well. But yeah, it really struck me as this really powerful way of you manifesting what you truly desired, and it obviously really worked because you know you've created so much amazing stuff in your career. And I just really loved that.
It's funny, it hasn't worked in the way that I would have really wanted it to work. You know, if it had worked in the way I would really want it to work, I probably would have gone to America and so on, and, you know, been doing films and stuff, because that's what I would have really loved to have done. But, you know, maybe that's something that's going to happen later in my career. There's no reason why I suddenly won't be doing that in my, you know, middle or late 50s or whatever. You know, who knows, just because it hasn't happened yet. And I think there's a reason for everything. And my mum always says to me, oh, it would have been a nightmare if you'd gone to Hollywood. It would have been a nightmare. You know, you wouldn't have been able to cope with all that, you know, that pressure and this, that and the other. So, you know, things do happen for a reason.
I wonder, just because in a lot of the work I do, often some of the stuff that are early experience of childhood often are things that prevent us from thinking that we're capable of doing these things. And I'm just wondering whether that's something that may have played out for you there.
I think that's very true. I think that I was very afraid and had no confidence. And I think that's partly why I went from one boyfriend to another boyfriend. I was frightened of being on my own when I was younger. You know, could I manage as a person if I was on my own? You know, it was a terrifying thought. And that's a shame, really. I was very fearful of life. And I've got a lot less fearful as I've got older. And I think that's just an age thing. And I mean,
it sounds almost like that experience of you going to Italy alone almost liberated that belief that you had. It's like you once thought, oh, you know, how can I be on my own? And then it kind of shifted everything because you liberated that belief that actually you could go to Italy on your own, drive across Italy, and you came back a changed person. It was almost like it was that belief that shifted there.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, and it's funny because I see it in my eldest daughter. She's very fearful. You know, oh, if I go to university, I don't want to leave Liverpool. You know, I want to stay at home. I don't want to leave home. You know, she's things scare her about life, and it's difficult, something like that, because part of that is just your personality, isn't it? And I just hope that she will learn to embrace things and make courageous moves as her life progresses.
It sounds like she's a secret witch as well. Yeah, I'm certain she's got a lot of your power in her as well. So I'm sure
Oh,
she will. But yeah, it's amazing because even though you feel that way, you still manage to powerfully create so much in your life. And yeah, I really, really love that. So just trying to think what else I wanted to speak to you about, because there's so much. Yeah, I think one of the things that intrigued me was your writing as well. So I've got your book here, Rosemary and the Book of the Dead. And I just wondered how that came about, because you've gone from, carving a career in as an actress, successful actress, into writing. So yeah, how did that come about?
well, it's sort of two things really. Number one, I never ever thought I'd be writing at all. It wasn't something that was on my wish list, if you like.
Mm.
But I sort of had a dream really about these characters, and when I was driving back and forth to Leeds, I'd have a lot of daydream time, to really think about things. And I started to, after I had this dream, I started to think about these sort of witch characters. I dreamt that they lived in our house. And so I started writing the first Rosemary book, Rosemary and the Witches of Pendle Hill. And I found that I didn't know where the story was going to go, actually, when I first started writing it. And it took me about 9 months, because I was working, filming and doing it whenever I had time. And also I had no great plan for it, really. I was writing it initially for my children.
Oh, that's
And
lovely.
I was also, because the two girls in it are based on my two daughters.
Oh.
And I was also writing it because I thought, you know what, I want to write something that I can play a part in, that I can actually write for myself and maybe for other people in the business, because I don't want to be playing this part in Emmerdale forever. I want to play other roles. If those other roles aren't necessarily there, then I want to create something that I think is important and good, and I've got something to say. And so that's why I started doing it, really. And also I love the freedom of the fact that it was for kids. So I could be I could let my imagination really run riot, and it didn't,
Mm.
be silly as well. So that's sort of how it started. And then obviously once you've actually got it written, and I left it for a bit, and I went back to it and I thought, oh, well, I think this is all right. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try and get it published. So I researched how to do all that. And then I, sent it to loads of agents, and everyone said no. And,
Mm.
so it took a long time. And then
Mm.
once I'd got an agent, it took a long time to find a publisher. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but
Mm.
I never stopped visualizing it. And I
Mm.
mean, we're not at the end of that yet, because it's got to be made into a film or a TV thing, because
I love that.
I've got a part in it for myself, and so
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, you're so gorgeous. This is amazing. I love all of that. There's yeah, the first thing that struck me about that is that we, talk about manifestation. We really do get what we dream about, what we kind of invest ourselves in. And it sounds to me like you just had this dream and it just came to life. And it almost feels kind of effortless. A lot of people kind of work very hard to to kind
it
of get
wasn't
this down.
effortless. It was really
No,
hard work.
no, I can imagine. I can imagine. But still, it just so amazing and inspiring to just have this dream and be able to put it out in the world and create it. And I get that it was hard, but also what I loved about that was your kind of devotion to, I guess, the path of soul, the path of what was meant for you, what was calling to you, despite the kind of adversity and the ideas that it was impossible. And I sense that's almost this theme within your life, actually, because it was like almost at one point acting was impossible, at one point going to Italy alone was impossible, and at another point the writing of the books felt impossible, and yet you were still there, devoted to it. And I think devotion for me feels to be one of those things that is really important in us being able to harness our magic and power. And I just wondered whether you had anything to speak to on that.
I think you're absolutely right, because I think that, I suppose I'm very lucky in that I am a very tenacious person, and obviously I have my moments of doubt. I mean, you read a bad review and you think, oh my God, have I written a really crappy book? Is it crap? Is this person right? And then you kind of stop and you go, no, actually it's one person's opinion. I believe in this. It's like, I believe in myself. I believe that I am I'm the best actress in the world, or I'm the best writer in the world, or this is the best book, this is going to happen. And there are people in your life all the time that are going to try and talk you out of it, or tell you you're rubbish, or say you're not good enough, or they're going to shout louder. And you just have to hold on to that and think, actually, you can sod off, because I know this is good. I know I can do this, and I don't care. I'm going to keep banging on this door until somebody opens it. Eventually we'll open
and
it.
it sounds as well like it was kind of more magically created. Even it's like it was meant to be in the world, and it's meant to be turned into whatever it was that a film or whatever it is that you visualized it. It's already happening in your mind.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And I feel like I can't believe that, it's stupid really, but I sometimes think, oh, I can't believe that it hasn't been picked up already. Like, I can't believe I haven't been offered that film in Hollywood. I can't believe I haven't been offered. It makes me sound really arrogant. I don't mean to sound arrogant. I just mean I have such faith in what I can do that I find it frustrating that other people don't see that. But then you have to remember that life is all about these obstacles and challenges, and that people will always try and put you down, and that it's really just keeping hold of that. And there are always going to be people that seem as though they're much luckier than you, or that they are getting X, Y, and Z. But you can't, it's all spin. What you see a lot of the time with what people are doing, they haven't necessarily just jumped into that. Things might have taken years, but it's just, we're in this world, aren't we, at the moment, where everybody's portrayed as this great success has just happened, and isn't this wonderful? And actually the truth behind it is it's probably been a long journey, or they've worked very hard, or that it's never as quite as it seems. And we kind of think we want things now, but in truth things take time. They don't just happen. If they just happen like that, they wouldn't be worth anything.
I think particularly again in the self-help world, it's almost seen as like living a solid life is really easy, whereas actually it requires a lot of willingness to go into the darkness, willingness to keep devoted to your path, because it's for you, and the more that you can keep taking the aligned actions despite the adversity that we come across, that's what makes it inevitable that you become the woman that you desire to become. And I think that is a really powerful lesson for the Secret Witch, because and I know this is true of myself, is that I can see in myself what you're describing here is almost like that tenacious, I'm going to keep going. And I think I've almost softened with that the more I've seen that actually when we really believe in magic, and we show up in devotion to magic, then it is really inevitable, as long as we keep taking the aligned actions, that it will happen. We will become who we...
And I think sometimes, there are times when you have to surrender to it and just go, okay, do you know what? I'm just gonna lay back. It's like laying back on the waves of the ocean, isn't it? I can't fight this anymore. I'm just going to let the tide take me for a bit, because I'm really tired and I've really worked really, really hard at trying. And I'm just going to surrender. And then sometimes just that surrender, because it's almost like saying, I'm not letting go of it, but I'm letting it go in order for it to come to me.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer as well that we all come here with kind of unique soul gifts, and that they kind of have a life of their own. There's like this soul will, I call it, which it kind of, as we submit to it and let it kind of live as us, it inevitably gets expressed if it's meant to be that way, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Mm, I'm really curious how easy, because I know obviously being an actress, you can be in the limelight, and you did come out as a witch, I suppose. And I'm just curious how edgy that was for you to do, because I know some of the secret witches that will be listening, for them, even just admitting that they are a secret witch to just their kind of friends and family could even be quite daunting and scary. So I'm just curious because you strike me as this kind of radiant witch. how that was for you.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how it's. I'm quite, I don't care what people think of that in a sense. But what makes me laugh is, because of what I'm interested in and the way I live my life and my interest in Wicca and all the spells and everything, people have always said to me, oh, you're a witch then. So it's kind of like always makes me giggle to want to sort of, when they ask you, because I sort of say, well, I suppose I am then. I've never really thought of it like that, because you grow up, don't you, thinking about witches as dark thing, dark magic kind of thing. And then you have to explain to people that there's, in Wicca, there's it's not about dark magic. It's the law of, harm ye none. That's the law, if you like. So anybody doing dark magic, I mean, they must be crazy, because it's going to come back on you times three. So it's not, so actually, Wicca is not about that. It's about pure magic. There's no white, there's no black.
Yes, I love that. I love
Do you know
that.
what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I think often, again, people come to this practice or to this work believing that the typical story about witches is that they are involved in some kind of dark magic that is harmful in some way, and yet, or they come from the other idea and they're just like, oh, we'll just play with some potions and spells and not really kind of do it intentionally or live as live in that way. And what we're really talking about here, I guess, is learning to harness real magical technology, is the way that I would describe it. It's like there are real laws of magic. And I love that you describe the basic laws of magic there with harm ye none. And I just wondered whether you might speak to that. The one that I'm thinking of is there was a quote that says, love is the law, love under will, which I think kind of speaks to what you're describing as well. It's like love is really, as long as love is kind of underneath everything that we do, that's kind of the way to creating magic.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Am I going to harm anyone by doing this? Am I going to hurt anybody? Am I going to upset anybody? Is this for the greater good? Is it for my greater good? Yeah, I mean, there's lots of questions you have to ask, really. But so to come back to your original question, so I suppose I just sort of, I haven't sort of openly said to people, yes, I am a witch. But I suppose if that's how people like to describe it, people like to put you in boxes or give you labels, then I'm quite happy with that, because I think, back to some, famous witches, if you like Morgan Le Fay, who I'm writing about actually at the moment in something, how fantastic, I mean, she was totally misrepresented, I believe, as this dark, witch. But I think that women in historic history, which is, they're always going to be portrayed as that, aren't they, as some kind of either some sort of sexual predator or some jealous mad woman, rather than just somebody that's very in tune with their power and their emotions and where they're going and what they want to achieve.
Yeah, gorgeous. I love that. And particularly that is how I use the lens of the witch, is that really she's this kind of almightily powerful creatrix, I guess, this powerful feminine force that's like really deeply intuitive, really kind of medicinal healer, that sort of thing. Anybody who resonates with that, they don't have to call themselves a witch as such. It's just that they resonate with that story.
Yeah.
And the way I use that is to help people kind of discover new parts of themselves that they perhaps locked away or hadn't seen. So yeah, I love that. And yet the press kind of labeled you as you're a witch.
Well, the press, they love that, don't they? And they love to get it all wrong. I mean, you have to take everything you read with a massive pinch of salt, because obviously there's some truth somewhere, but
But what I do love about you, and just speaking to you, I've really picked this up right now, is just how kind of open and truthful you are. And I really think that is so that in itself is so powerful, because I think part of the secret witch's journey is that she feels she has to hide away and she can't speak her truth. So even that is kind of testament to your radiance, I guess, if that makes sense.
Oh, thank you.
So I don't know if you've always been like that, but yeah, it strikes me as even that is a very powerful aspect of the archetypal witch.
Trouble. It has got me into trouble.
Bless you. I did have some questions, or one question actually, from a community member. I'm just going to find it. We actually had, I don't know if you've come across his work, we had Don Miguel Ruiz on the show previously, and he talks about actually how we are all powerful actors and creators of our lives through the power of story. So he's saying that we basically get to create the story of our lives. And so one of our community asked, if you're kind of used to playing characters, is there a way that you then kind of step back into your true self rather than staying in character? And I guess my question to that is, do you kind of ever accidentally manifest, I guess, things that you've created in character, if that makes sense?
What, life imitating art and so on.
Yeah.
I think that can happen sometimes when you're playing a long running character. So like, being in the soap and everything, sometimes that can happen. Something happens in the story and then it mirrors in real life. And I think that's only because it's hard to, you're running parallel lives, you're running your own life and then you're running that character's life. I think that happened to me more when I was younger, but now my life is so very separate, if you like, from the acting world, because I've got a family and a husband and everything now, whereas before I met my husband, when I was on my own sort of thing, I think it was more likely to happen. I'd sort of absorb it all much more.
Yeah, that's actually really fascinating, because
I can shake it off now.
Yeah, I guess one of the most important parts actually of my path that I share is about kind of embodying the energetic of who we long to become. So embodying the witch. And it strikes me that almost you've just become so in tune and you've harnessed your power so well that now that no longer happens. But it's actually really interesting that, given that you play this long-standing character, I guess in your younger days when you were kind of new to that, it's really interesting that you were embodying the character and then experiencing the manifestation of that in your own life. That's got me really excited.
And it doesn't happen if you're playing something just for a short time, if you're in a play or just doing a 3 months, even 5 months on a series. When I was shooting a series, it doesn't tend to happen. You can get rid of it, but playing a character for a lot of years, and that's why I think you need to come away from it. I mean, I left the show, it's about 2 years ago, coming up for 2 years now, and took 18 months out before I went back at the beginning of April. And I mean, I wasn't intending to go back actually. But obviously, you know, we've been in a really difficult time, and I couldn't turn down the offer to go back because there hasn't really been any other work. It's starting to build up now. Obviously, things are coming back. So I just thought, well, I can't really turn this down. Couldn't ask me to go back. But I really needed that break anyway, because you do get to the stage where you feel like, I just don't want to live this person's life alongside my life at the moment. I want to just live my life.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it really does speak to the power of, you know, long-term embodiment, because part of the work that I do, for example, you would say, speak out an incantation every morning about who you long to become. And the more that you get into that kind of, I guess, character, it's like you're stepping into that character. So for me, for example, might be Queen Witch that I embody, who's like this powerful creatrix, really. And so the more I embody her, the more that my life becomes in alignment with who I want to be. So yeah, really interesting that works the same way in embodying the role that you're playing in a soap, which I can imagine, given that it's so dramatic, is probably not something that you want to be embodying.
Well, the thing is, I'm very lucky that it's a comedy character. I wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't, because if you were playing some tragic stories all the time, it would be unbearable. But the fact that it's comedy, you know, it is great, and I'm just thankful for that, really.
Yeah, that's gorgeous, actually. Yeah. Have you got any examples of how you've manifested that characters? I'm just curious now. On the spot, you might not have, but
no, probably nothing I can say either. I don't know.
Yeah, you just have a sense that
to go down that road. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting though. That's gorgeous. Yeah. So yeah, have you got any kind of practical tips for people? You know, you mentioned your kind of spell kits. Is there anything that I'll be able to offer that's a practical tip?
I used to find that when I lived in a house before we lived in this house, and there was something very strange about the energy there, and it wasn't the right place for us. But I had to cleanse the house every 3 months, really, to get rid of to replace the energy. And I think I'm all for cleansing, you know, using sage smudging sticks. Don't do it very often in this house, actually, because the energy's really lovely. But I think it's a really good thing to do, and I think it's a good way of preparing your magical space, if you like, as well. You know, just doing a bit of cleansing, smudging, and so on. I find that really useful.
And the key thing there, of course, is doing it with intention, isn't it? I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think before, you know, in practical terms, I think you have to think. I think this is probably why I don't create any. I don't sit down and kind of do sort of manifest a spell, if you like, for myself very often. I mean, I think it's like you say, like we were talking before, it's about the way you live your life and the everyday stuff that you're doing without even realizing. Because I think if you're going to do a specific spell, to weave together a spell specifically, you have to think quite long and hard about what your intention is and the steps to get there. Because it can so easily become something that you didn't initially want, you know.
I've got a good example of that. When I first decided that I was calling this the Secret Witch Show, I declared to my coach, I was like, I'm a witch, and I should have been burnt at the stake, and I joked, and then my house set on fire. So I was like, it's a great example of why we really need to harness our power, but when we do, we can really powerfully create, which is kind of, you know, really well demonstrated from what you've created.
You do have to be very, very careful what you wish for. And I know people joke about that and say, like, it's an old wives saying or whatever you want to call it, but it's so true. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and yet it offers us so much hope, because there's so much possibility for when we are able to harness our magic.
Absolutely. And and it's that belief, isn't it, that this is what I really want to happen, and in fact this is going to happen, and thank you for allowing this to happen, because it will happen, and I look forward to receiving it.
Yeah, gorgeous. So is there anything that you want to share about your new book? Because you've got your new book out, haven't you? When is
It
that out?
comes out on Thursday, the 14th, next week, the 14th of October. So I
That's
don't know when
very
your
exciting.
podcast is actually out, but
it'll be in November, actually. So
in November. So the book's out now.
Actually, no, it will be at the end of October. Actually, this one,
Into
I
October.
think.
So the book's out. I am doing a few signings. Details of those are on my website, which is thesamanthagiles.co.uk. Find out about the books, just my interest in Wicca, and you can find out about the acting as well. Everything's on there. So the book, I like writing about history in the books as well, including history, because I think it's a really great way of children learning about stuff in a fun way. And I know that my daughter, when she was in year 3, one of my daughters was doing about Egypt and everything, and I'm fascinated with Egypt and the gods and goddesses and so on. And so I thought it'd be great to incorporate that into this next book, which I did. And I felt very much, a friend of mine does a lot of healing on the Wirral, and she was trained with the seventh, I don't know if I've got this right, the Seventh Ray Mystery School. I've heard of that, I don't know. Anyway, one of the healing modalities that she does is called Sekhmet Ka healing. Now, Sekhmet was the goddess of war, but in Egyptian times, but she was also the goddess of healing. And she takes you through, Karen takes you through like a guided meditation in her space, which is called Temple of Light. She'd be a great person for you to have on your podcast, actually. And she takes you to a guided meditation where you actually walk out the shop and you walk into a pyramid in Egypt, and then you walk down into Sekhmet's healing chamber and you lay on the stone bed, and then basically your guides come from all your past lives, and you are healed from things from your past lives and so on, and you feel and you see things, and Karen sees things, and then when the healing's over, she brings you back. You kind of share your information, share what you've talked about. And I particularly absolutely love that healing. It's the most incredible experience ever. And I've always come out of there feeling as if I've got a very special connection with Sekhmet. So she had to be included in the book. So she's in the book.
I love that.
It's like a little homage to her and a little thank you, really, because I feel that she was behind getting this book written as well. And that there's a point that I make in the book. I mean, the book is about, the sort of main themes, I suppose, are about your oh God, I can't speak, about not being afraid to be who you are, and how diversity is, really important. But the main thing is you have beliefs, you have your personality, let that light shine. Don't let anybody try and stamp on you. So it's about being yourself and not being afraid to be yourself. And so one of the things that I wanted to include was the Book of the Dead goes missing. And for the purposes of the book, I've made it sound as if there's only just one Book of the Dead in the British Museum, where actually in Egypt times anybody wealthy would have had a Book of the Dead put in their coffin with them, which are the instructions to get through to the afterlife. And in this, I've got sort of the kids have to find who's taken the book and then return it to the British Museum, which they think they've done. But at the end, they realise that Anubis, who's the god of the afterlife, he's given them the book, but he's actually given them a fake to give back to the British Museum. He's kept the real one. Because I have this real thing, I think, why have we got artifacts and things in this country that don't belong here, that are from another country's history and heritage? So I wanted to sort of make a little point about that, which probably it may go over the kids' heads, but the grown-ups will sort of see
there's so much I love in this. It's almost like firstly, I love that you're creating almost, how we're using the witch as powerful story for people to resonate with. You're basically doing the same within your book. It's like giving them the magic that is available to them in life. And I really love that that's available for children. That is just so gorgeous. And I particularly love, obviously, that you're helping them see that they're powerful. And also I feel like you model that really, really powerfully yourself, that kind of the journey of like not really seeing that you had the power to go to Italy alone, and then actually that you are powerful. So yeah, it's almost like that journey that you went through was your unique soul journey in order to be able to provide this gift of this book to children. And that's just magical for me. That feels magical. And then the other magical piece is that I actually pulled the Sekhmet card from my Divine Feminine Oracle card this morning. So I love that. And you're also the second person, because I recorded another show earlier, the second person to have mentioned Egypt. So yeah, magic.
That is really strange. Well, no, I mean, I firmly believe then that she's given this her blessing. I really believe that.
Yeah. So that is beautiful. I can really see how, your journey led to you being able to create this book that will empower so many children. And that feels like it's just I've got goosebumps at that. It feels like a really beautiful, deep service to the world by you just being in your truth. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Magical. So yeah, have you got anything else? It feels like a good place to kind of complete
and it's been a really lovely interview. It's so nice to actually talk about kind of important, worthy things rather than fluff. So it's been really, really a nice experience. Thank you.
That was such a beautiful conversation. I really, really admired Samantha's truth. Here are my key takeaways. Being a witch doesn't necessarily mean that we practice spells. It's actually more of a way of being and a potent lens that we can use to really see our capacity to harness our power to create a magical life. Our dreams are so powerful that they can bring our imaginations to life, including those things that we deem impossible, such as being an actress and an author. It's not just a case of making a wish and waiting for the universe to provide to us, though. There is a co-creation required to create a magical life, which involves us taking aligned action towards our goals. This can require some devotion from us, even and especially in the face of adversity. And it's not always easy, but it's definitely worth it if we want to shine radiantly as our truth, as modelled so beautifully by Samantha. Other people can put whatever labels on us they like, but it's what we believe that matters. And the more we can embody our magical stories, the more we are able to harness our magic. It's important that we use magic responsibly in alignment with our soul will. Whatever we embody will manifest. If we're acting, we'll get whatever role our character embodies. And we get to powerfully choose the roles we desire and can create those, but we need to harness our power intentionally. If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.